Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ketogenic Diet Show. My name is Mary Beauchamp. I'm a registered nurse and naturopathic doctor's assistant, and I am very excited to talk today with Jason France. And I would love to have you introduce yourself and just kind of tell people about your keto carnivore experience. I know you've kind of had an evolution in your progression as well as I have, and I'd love to just hear about your experience and kind of what
Yeah,
started and what led you to this point.
sure. So, I guess not to drone on and on, but my very minor claim to fame, I guess, is that I'm a serial entrepreneur and an engineer, which is why there's all this stuff behind me, which I didn't realize was going to be look more interesting than me. Anyway, in the 90s, I was instrumental in inventing charging stations for electric cars, and I had a company here in Auburn, and it was a huge passion, and that's important to the story. Huge passion of mine, electric cars. I feel that trying to make electric cars a reality will help alleviate some future suffering for humans around the globe, so it gives me a lot of passion to care about that. But anyway, at around 2001 or so, it became impossible to maintain any kind of company that was involved in electric cars. And at about the same time, I had already come across some different ideas on diet. I think, gosh, what was it, the South Beach diet or something like this? And I'm like, what's that? Why is that have scientific relevance, kind of stuff. And anyway, so I was reading about all that stuff, and I wanted to lose weight for vanity reasons, oh, kind of. And then I came across Dr. Atkins' book, and I read that, and I just thought that actually had real potential information in it that actually described how human systems work, with insulin and all this stuff. And I began practicing myself. And then with the collapse of my charging station company, I needed something to do, and I found myself having some pretty serious interest in uh, ketogenic dieting, which is what it's called now.
Yeah.
And I ended up opening a chain of 3 stores where the primary purpose of these stores was to you come in, there is no sugar in the store, there's some artificial sugar, of course, but various kinds of products, a few thousand products that but that wasn't the primary purpose of the stores. The primary purpose was to expose people to this concept of ketogenic dieting
Ah,
and to provide advice. We had lectures, support material, all this kind of stuff. And so that was a really great passion of mine. I would call it my secondary passion in general. That went on for a while. And then electric cars started up again when the now very famous Tesla announced they were going to make this certain electric car. And so I kind of got right back into charging stations. And now I'm the president and owner of Clipper Creek, which is here in Auburn. And we are one of the top players in charging station markets. However, during this entire 20-year span of being a ketogenic dieter, I on and off, studied more and studied more and studied more. And I was an avid, that's the word, ketogenic dieter. I try to encourage other people to do so. I felt that it was maybe, even though it was a secondary passion of mine, it was like still like a big deal. Nobody needs to, die from diabetes tomorrow. Just stop eating that, right? Anyway, and so I would talk about it whenever people would let me.
mhm.
Sometimes you just don't bring that up. I learned that lesson a few times. Don't talk about diet to somebody who isn't interested. And in fact, you're maybe one of the very first people ever to actually ask me about the carnivore diet.
Oh,
Usually it's like I'm talking to my friends and they're like, shut up, Jason, we're tired
yeah.
of hearing about it. Okay, sorry. So anyway, um, recently I found myself with this, latest venture over the course of, say, 8 years, gaining a little weight here and there. And it was my own fault because I would have, say, 2 to 3 cheat meals a month.
Mhm.
you know, and I'm very sensitive to carbs. It's just my natural body. And so just even like one Mexican meal twice a month is enough for me to like gradually gain weight because it, knocks you out of ketosis and you have some gain weight for a while. And then,
Yeah.
anyway, so around 20, yeah, beginning of 2017, I just put my foot down. I was like 225. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm huge, right? Because I'm not very tall. I'm only like 5'8". And I'm like, this is just getting gross. I know what to do. I'm just going to do it. And, 9 or even 15 out of 20 meals. No, sorry. I'd only cheat maybe 1 out of 15 meals or 1 out of 12. I mean, 1 out of 12 is not a good ratio because the 3 days. But anyway, so the 3 days to get into ketosis. And so anyway, I was very practiced at being, and this is relevant because it's part of my experience. It's very, very practiced, having done it for 20 years, of what my body does, how it reacts to it, and when I cheat, what it does, and how long it takes to get back to ketosis. Like, for example, I never had the keto flu. I was very fortunate that way. I just would be bloated and then immediately be disciplined, get back on, feel great, but then be tempted by some chips or something, a few weeks later. Anyway, so I put my foot down and I said, stop this. You're having a shop at the fat guy store. Come on, right? You know what to do, and it's not good for you to let yourself get big as you're getting older. I'm in my 50s, my mid 50s. So I'm like, so anyway, so I just quit cheating and I stuck with it, and I lost half the weight. Say maybe 65 pounds was the total weight loss in a 2-year period, which is unexpected for a man like, you know, of me, my stature. It's not unusual at all, of course, as you know, I'm sure. And so I lost about half of it over the course of 2017. And I was reinvigorated to some extent by Suzanne Gwynn, who is one of my staff members. She's my director of marketing and a fabulous lady. And where she just kept sending me and I think you did a podcast with her
I
a couple
did.
years ago or something, yeah.
Yeah.
And she kept sending me this new information about various things, and and of course I'm very, I was interested, so I'm looking at it, and it's like it seems like over the last 6 years or something, there's been this resurgence of information, and there is a lot more information than from the early 2000s, far beyond what was there before. And just stumbled across the carnivore diet. Really, I was also focused on working out, trying to make my body look better. After I got down to about 190 pounds, I really started to focus on, uh, I want to look good when I get the rest of this off. So, and anyway, so it was like, it's a little embarrassing to even say, but I tried the carnivore diet with almost no research. I just thought, it seems like it should be okay. And it was just like these big beefy workout dudes. Just try it. It has this hormonal response. You won't believe it unless you try it anyway. So don't even bother. Just do it. And so anyway, I started that at the beginning of 2018, along with 1 meal a day or two. You know, and boy, I tell you what, I really wish I had been exposed to these ideas. And since then, of course, I've done actual research and stuff to give myself some confidence that I'm not killing myself, right? But totally different than the keto diet for me. It was easy to transition because I was on a keto diet and very experienced with it. But it has so now I actually am a bit of a dilemma because I have so many unexpected health benefits, which now I understand many people have.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, I just started without. I was really a hormonal response. Am I even going to be able to tell? I don't believe that, but I'll try it. I mean, what am I going to die if I just eat meat for 2 months? No, of course not, right? But the effects were not immediate. It did take time. Also, but I did begin experiencing effects that are not from the weight loss. So I lost second half of the weight, got down into the low 160s, but the effects of the carnivore diet were so many and so unexpected and so positive.
Mhm.
They began happening and marching along at different rates. Um, and it was not the weight loss. It wasn't attributable to the weight loss. Some people would say, well, you lost another 30 pounds, so that's why your sinuses are better. No, I've been on a keto diet. I've been this light before. My sinuses were always bad, terrible allergies. No, right? That actually took a while. But so um, if
So,
you want to
so
talk about maybe what some of the effects are, now
yeah,
I'm in this spot where it's like,
yeah.
the idea is, well, if I go back to eating vegetables, it never occurred to me like not to eat some plants,
Hmm.
okay. But now my thought is that's not, I shouldn't eat that stuff because, okay, so is it really worth eating this bell pepper to have XYZ, happening again or this, that, and the other thing? So I wish I'd started it 20 years ago. I mean, wow, who
Yeah,
knows how great I'd feel fantastic now. So
that's awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little recap. So how many years were you doing keto?
20 years.
20.
Well, eight, say late 90s to, yeah, and all of 2019,
Okay.
2018. Yeah, I
Okay.
went through 2018, no, 2017.
Okay. And then you,
Almost, call it 20 years, close enough.
okay, yeah, close enough. And then so you've been on the carnivore diet now for about 2 years.
This is my third year.
Third year. Okay.
So 18, January of 18 is when I switched, 18, 19, and then the rest of 20 will be, I'm definitely doing it the rest of the year. So
Okay, awesome. So did you set out to do it forever, or would you just like, I'm going to try this and see how it goes, and then one day at a time kind of a thing? Or how did,
one day at a time.
yeah, yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
I think that's the best. So you and I have a
Yeah,
lot in
definitely
common.
one day at a time. Oh, yeah. Is that what you're doing too?
No, I mean, right now I am doing carnivore one day at a time. That is my mantra. Um, but I've been involved with keto diets for probably 25 years, since 1994. So
Nice.
um, I've been very much on board with low carb diets and been doing keto kind of like you, in and out. I, vacation or cheat or whatever you want to call it now and again. And I just didn't feel good when I did it. It wasn't that I gained weight. So I did it for other reasons. And I've been an
Hmm.
advocate of it for people with, autoimmune, cancer, weight, obesity, diabetes, any sort of thing really. And it's been recent that I've been really diving into the research around carnivore diet, and particularly what really just blew my mind was listening to Paul Saladino, the author of The Carnivore Code. I don't know if you've read that book, but if you haven't read his book or listened to his podcasts, everybody listening, I highly recommend you check him out because he is deep down into the science of this, and it's very profound. And it's really changed my mind about the whole, giving up plants mentality and how difficult that was for me. I mean, I own a food company, and I import, food from all over the world, and particularly a lot of foods that are high um, in inflammatory properties such as lectins and oxalates. So, and I've done it for periods of time, and I teach that in my courses that, we give up plants for a certain amount of time, doing a gut healing protocol, but then you add them in gradually and slowly and kind of see how your body responds. And so the carnivore diet is really the ultimate elimination diet, I would say. And so, but to imagine extending that out for years never occurred to me. I mean, I have to be honest, it just never did. So I always you know, saw it as a detox or a cleanse or a period, something you do once, twice, three times a year, maybe for a period of time. Um, but anyway, so now I've been doing it for 45 days, and I'm also noticing a lot of things. So I would love for you to share just the things that you notice change when you, and that are continuing to unfold for you, which is awesome. Just so give us an idea of what you've noticed changing.
Boy, okay. Figure out how to talk about it appropriately.
Okay. It's all
So
right.
it
You can say whatever you want.
the um, it has been very interesting, and I'm not sure the changes are done happening.
Okay.
On many of the changes were just I didn't do it for that reason, but the benefits are unavoidable, and that's the reason. It's just straight
Mm,
up.
mhm,
So, um, and there probably are many other benefits that are just I can't see or detect in my own body. Perhaps, but one of the first things that was very noticeable, and that began to happen, say, within 2 months or even less, was the hormonal effects that
mhm.
people talk about.
So increased libido, things like
I
that?
in like I'm a man in my mid 50s, and my libido was definitely not what I remembered it used to be like, nor my performance.
Yeah. Mhm.
However, that started taking a turn and has done nothing but maybe improve in time.
Excellent.
I'm sure there's some limits to what it can be like, but
Mm,
I'm like what I remember being 22 was like.
nice.
Oh yeah. So, and it's like, it's not supposed to be that way for me. So I want to. The first thing that really that was happening and gradually increasing, and I just thought, well, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
It At the time I was doing a lot of running as part of my workout routine, and say within about 4 to 6 months, it began to be. I think it was like summertime when I was actually outside running more and harder. I began to realize that the way my body was responding to the workouts was not what I was used to for since the early 90s,
Mm,
including, not running for a while, then running and running and running, going through periods of discipline and maybe more lacking. And my cardiovascular system and my cardiovascular system was responding with much more dramatic performance. I would do things with faster and sooner than it used to. I never did. You know,
mm,
I'm used to running. You run a lot, and you end up running the same places because you've only got so much time, and I can make this path in an hour, and you just go again, and you focus on your listening to music or something because it's boring as all can get out. But it's like I don't normally run up this hill.
mm,
I can't not like this. You're just bounding up the hill, and your heart isn't saying, "Hey, slow down." Like no heart after a while. Heart never says slow down. It just says, "Just keep going. We're good." And it's like that's weird.
wow.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like not awesome, but in my mid 40s, I started to get hemorrhoids,
Mm,
and I was on a very strict keto diet. And my doctor's like, yeah, that's what happens when you get older. Okay, thanks. And no big deal. Nobody dies from that, I guess. I mean, diverticulitis and all these other horrible things that are really an extension of that kind of inflammation that just keeps going and going and gets out of control. Not cool, but it was not a big deal for me. Not too big a deal. Wasn't fun, but um, yeah, I realized maybe about month 5 or 6 that it was totally gone.
uh-huh.
And and by the end of the first year, my whole gut, everything about it, all the way from top to bottom, felt and was different.
Mm,
The muscle tissues were thicker. There was never another incident, never another flare up, nothing. It was gone. And in fact, I do remember my last flare up, and it was 3 months into the diet, and I went out to a restaurant with my father for father. I think it's Father's Day. That's the right time frame, or his birthday, one of those two. And I had been on this carnivore diet for what felt like forever, but really I think it was just about 3 months or 2.5 months. And I thought I'm going to get a wedge salad, right? I mean, wedge salad, the lettuce is not fancy, but really, what is it? It's blue cheese and some bacon, right? It's totally keto.
yep.
And I made sure there wasn't anything else on there. And, and I eat the wedge salad. I eat a little bit of boiled broccoli, steamed broccoli. I have a steak. 2 days later, bam,
Hmm.
total flare up. And it stuck in my mind because it suddenly occurred to me it had been quite a while since I'd had one. And then nothing ever happened again. So what am I going to eat a salad and go back on that? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, the gut healing
Yeah. Something
potential.
that took longer that eventually did become, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. So sorry, go ahead because you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I was just going to say this really speaks to the gut healing capacity that this diet offers. That is only going to happen if you cut out those inflammatory plants. That those toxins, the lectins, the oxalates, and things that are coming in with green plants. And it's just fascinating to me that you had that quick of a response to noticing the inflammation in your gut immediately. So this is what is really fascinating to me. And so anybody who is suffering from leaky gut, which is pretty much 99% of all Americans, even if you're doing a keto diet, is that is the epicenter of inflammation in your body. And that is the one thing that above all else that this targets gut health and metabolic health. So I'm so excited that you're sharing this because it's really, really important. So keep going.
And with various lectures that I've seen, like many of the things that you referenced in your video from earlier this week, I went to look at your references and stuff, and I'd already seen quite a few of them, like Dr. Paul Mason, super credible person.
Love him. He's
Oh
just
yeah, he's
amazing.
really amazing.
Yeah, and I'll put some links underneath this video as well for the listeners that you'll be able to find a lot of these links for the people that we're talking about as well. Dr. Mason, Dr. Saladino, Sally Norton, people that you need to be following.
I think the first book I read was from the one from Gary Tubes, which you're
Uh-huh.
probably
Yep.
familiar with. Yeah. And then I got about halfway through the sugar book, Don't Eat Sugar. I got to brave it again because it was like, I get about halfway through and it's just like, okay, don't eat sugar, Gary. We got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh gosh. Something that was much longer term, which I already mentioned once, was my sinuses.
Mm.
By in the second year, I began to be able to see and tell that my sinuses were becoming very different.
Mm.
I'd had the sinus surgery a while ago where they clean it all out because there's an infection it won't get rid of. And that's on a keto diet.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I had known or had been able to connect it to eating plants, but at that time, just never came across anything to suggest that. So the best my sinus maybe have ever been is definitely now. And the second best time was after fully healing from very invasive surgeries that did everything they could possibly do. And I'm better definitely now than even then. And in fact, I can sleep on my back.
Mm.
I haven't been able to sleep on my back, and I can't remember when it's because you don't breathe when you have inflamed sinuses. They didn't just stop being inflamed; they wound up.
Mm.
They're like, it's like they're tiny or something, right? Like they've shrunk up totally, and it's wow, that was just that effect by itself is really worth it. So.
Yeah, unexpected. So what happens is these oxalates and lectins from plants, you guys, these poisons, you could say, that all plants have, some have more than others, they attack your mucous membranes and the sinuses, the gut, from top to bottom, and even your lungs, and this can really contribute to asthma and other things. These toxins get in through the gut, and they attack your mucous membranes, your joints, your in every any place that's vulnerable in your body is susceptible. So they come out of your mucous membranes, your eyes. Actually, oxalates can come out of your eyes, out of your tonsils, out of your they can impact your urinary tract. For women especially, it's just really intense pain and intermittent pain. So these toxins get in and they can't get out, and they don't come out easily. So we really have to work to seal the gut so that those toxins aren't just leaking out into our bloodstream and causing autoimmune reactions.
All
Because
kinds of random autoimmune reactions,
yeah.
right? Like all kinds of different weird stuff. Like I diagnosed with lichen planus once,
Oh,
quite some time ago, which is some
uh-huh.
kind of weird autoimmune thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like them. Yeah, it didn't was no big deal. It wasn't, life threatening or anything like this. It was just like your body was covered in spots, and eventually they disappeared. But there was really nothing they could do. But apparently that was an autoimmune disorder. And if I had to guess these days, I wouldn't have had it. It wouldn't have happened to me if I had been on a carnivore diet instead of a keto diet.
Right. That's actually a symptom of oxalate toxicity. That's what happens when the oxalates come out. All sorts of skin problems and the lectin poisons as well. So acne, psoriasis, um, eczema, all those things are related to inflammation in the gut and this autoimmune reaction that occurs. So unfortunately, with all the keto sort of popular foods, those can be the highest of all in lectins and oxalates because we're eating a lot of greens, a lot of green smoothies, a lot of hearty greens, and also even the low carb vegetables, broccoli and things like that have oxalates. And not only that, but the nuts, the nut butters, the nut flours. So they're keto because they're low carb, but they're loaded with oxalates and lectins. So the thing to remember is that in our ancestors did not eat abundant amounts of nuts at every meal and every day, and it was seasonal and it was rare, and we had time in between animals that we ate to detox from those poisons, and we don't give our body time to do that anymore, so they just keep building up. And this is it's a major problem across the country, the globe really, because we don't eat seasonally anymore. Very few cultures do. So yeah, and they prepared their nuts and seeds differently. They soaked them, they sprouted them, they fermented them um, forever. And so we buy almond flour, for example, in the market to make our keto cookies. And I guarantee you that that flour is not properly prepared and soaked and dehydrated before they grind it into flour, right? And even that would still bring in some amount of plant toxins, not as many. And some people just can't quite unwind their inflammation and they can't figure out why. And this is a big part of it. So it's fascinating to me that
Yeah, and when I had those stores, for example, we sold all that kind of stuff. Flours that were low carb, wish I'd known better, but um, it's really concentrated too.
Mhm.
You end up you have one or two almond flour cookies. There's a lot of almond flour, and you'd have to eat a lot of almonds to get that much. So absolutely, and stones. Something you didn't mention was stones. I don't have stones, luckily, that I
You
know
mean
of.
kidney stones?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
they're made. Most of them, it's my understanding, 90% or more of them are made from. The only source is oxalates,
Mhm.
and the only source of that is the plants. And obviously your body is incapable of getting rid of them fast enough, or they wouldn't accumulate.
Exactly. That's a great point. Yeah, definitely. Kidney stones are a symptom of oxalate toxicity as well, for sure. So yeah,
And that is unpleasant for a lot of people.
it is, and I've had one. I've actually had
Oh,
two. So yeah, I've experienced
rough.
it, and I've really nobody ever talked to me about diet related to it. I just kind of had to do my own research, but I haven't had one in about 10 years. So hopefully I won't ever get another one now. But my kidneys are definitely compromised, I feel, as a result of eating a lot of plants and a lot of nuts and a lot of seeds for a lot of years. So yeah,
You mentioned that you had been a vegan before. Is that true?
I've been vegan. I was vegetarian. I went to a Seventh day Adventist college, and everyone at the college was a vegetarian. They didn't even serve meat on the campus. And so I was vegetarian there for um, 4 years basically, and even after that. So it was a good probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 years I was vegetarian slash vegan, in and out. And yeah, I started my health journey with the Fit for Life diet when I watched Dr. McDougall on the Bill Donahue show, like back in high school, and thought, okay, I'm going to try that. Because I was always fascinated with nutrition since I was young, growing up on a farm. And so I did it, and it was fruit and vegetables. It was fruit in the morning and vegetables in the afternoon. And it was, I had horrible problems. I had terrible candida, terrible acne. It did not do good for me. And then from there, it was just a progression of, trying to figure out what my body really needed and would work for me. And so it's just been, it's been a lifetime of a journey for me on this path. And I'm committed to it. And I love the research that's coming out about the keto or paleo carnivore diet. So there's keto, there's carnivore, and there's paleo. They're sort of a little bit the same. They have some crossovers, but they're also very different. And so my journey has kind of led me to definitely be low carb, low sugar for most of all of my life, and really raised my kids that way. And now, I've been keto for a number of years, and also noticing that my labs, my blood tests aren't perfect. And I'm wondering why that is. And I want to, I want to think that I could, if my body had the right tools, I wouldn't need to take supplements. And I wouldn't, I don't take any pharmaceuticals, but I want to get off my supplements. And when I heard Paul Saladino talk about how you don't need to take omega-3s, the giant horse pills that I take a handful of every day, that really appealed to me. That really caught my attention. And how if the body gets enough stearic acid, it will produce its own omega-3s, which was incredibly fascinating to me. So that kind of sent me on a major tangent to dive into that science. And so anyway, I've been just committed to it because I want to see how my body responds. And so far it's been really positive, and it is one day at a time for me. But now I've been incorporating a lot more organ meats. So I want to find out what you're eating, because Paul Saladino, Carnivore MD, and I've been a Weston Price chapter leader, and I've always believed in Dr. Weston Price's work and Dr. Natasha Campbell. And this is not new information that organ meats are very, very nutrient dense. But I've had my ins and outs with them, and I've just started recently incorporating a lot more. So it's been an interesting culinary experience in my house. Kudos to my husband, because I don't know how anybody could put up with my craziness, but we're eating a lot of bone marrow and heart and kidney and liver and spleen and all kinds of organs that I've never eaten. So I've gotten a lot more brave. And even today we had tripe. So that was really
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm diving deep into this rabbit hole right now and really trying to get my body back into a natural balance without having to take any supplements. And so I'll let you know how it goes. But what are you eating? Tell me what your typical day looks like, and where are you getting your fats from? And do you track your macros, and do you check your ketones or any of that? No. Okay.
I mean, I have, back in the day, I did ketone checking and all that kind of stuff. Maybe 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So the way I eat now, on the carnivore diet is well, I don't do any of that stuff.
Okay.
I think, how do I feel? How much energy do I have? Do I feel clear-headed? Are my workouts stronger and stronger? Like, do I feel invigorated, motivated? I focus on like how I feel, and I don't count macro ingredients. I know it's popular, and I'm not saying it's not a great idea. Um, I try to eat one meal a day. Actually, really, it's more like a narrow eating window, 3 hours. Not that I'm eating for 3 hours, of course. That's not. Usually, there's a little snack or a break, breaking my fast, and then planning one larger meal. But today that wasn't really going to work out for me. So I had maybe 4 ounces of beef.
Okay.
They were beef rib, a short rib, and try to eat as much of this as I can, including whatever cartilage and stuff is in there. I try to eat everything I can on whatever it is.
Mhm.
So if I'm eating a chicken leg, I try to eat the cartilage and everything. But I don't, maybe someday I'll want to get more into eating macronutrients and tracking them and doing all that stuff. But the reality is I don't do any of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I eat mostly beef,
Okay.
pork. Once in a while, I'll eat bird, whatever, mostly chicken, of course. I do go back and forth between eating eggs and not eating eggs. I'm still trying to figure out whether or not eggs bother me. They don't bother me enough that it's really noticeable. So still kind of going back and forth with that. I don't supplement. I used to
Mhm.
quite regularly, actually. That was a huge thing. I would always supplement. And after going on the carnivore diet, after the first year, I entirely stopped anything related to supplements. And hey, I don't have scurvy. At least I don't think I do. Um,
Do you get regular lab tests to see where, like, your cardiometabolic function, your cholesterol, triglycerides, omega 3, omega 6? Do you ever get those type of lab tests done? No.
since going on carnivore, I have not got any lab tests.
Mhm. No
Um,
nutrient
I'm
test?
actually, yeah, are you familiar with Dr. Sean Baker?
No.
He's the Meat RX guy.
Oh, okay.
And he's an actual doctor. He was
Uh-huh.
a practicing physician. I don't know if he still is. I think he was put on hiatus for a bit, but then maybe he's a doctor again. Not sure. But anyway, totally super credible person.
Mhm.
And you know, I've things he says make a lot of sense. And he's like, well, I don't really get regular blood work either. I kind of go how I feel. And if I thought there was actually something that measured was a true measure of your fitness, I would totally take that test. But even as a doctor, I don't believe that anymore. So my thoughts on that topic are definitely evolving. I used to very regularly get blood work. I used to fret over it,
Mhm.
and now I feel more awesome and younger than ever, and I'm doing exactly everything you're not supposed to do. So,
I love it. That's
you
awesome.
know, and I'm actually saying my own ignorance is leading me to this opinion at this time. And as you stated at the beginning, my understanding is also evolving, and I am not going to stay under a rock. I want to keep learning and evolving, and anything I might be doing could definitely be in the wrong direction. But I'm trying things and seeing how I feel. So that's what's going on for me right
Excellent. So your gut feels good.
now. Oh my God,
You have
never
lots
thought it
of,
could be like this. Yeah.
yeah, great. You're no heartburn, no
Wow.
indigestion, nothing like that going on. Great. I mean, that's
No.
always a common question. Oh, well, if you don't have fiber, you're going to be constipated, but that has not been the case for anybody I've talked to. So it's fascinating. Okay, so you have a lot more libido. You're working out. How long? What? Tell me about your workouts. How far are you running, and every day or week?
Sure. So I'm kind of doing this really different and really new thing um, that I think is a real thing. Kind of like keto dieting when I discovered ketogenic dieting, which was the Atkins diet and whatever, a long time ago, right? It's hard to get your mind wrapped around something that's so different than what's generally recommended. And as a skeptical person, as an engineer, scientist type person, I really hate it when I start to think something's true and I just discover that it's just completely wrong, right? Like that's dumb. I hate that, right? So I'm very skeptical, try to be cautious about new ideas. So anyway, it's pretty hard. And then this whole carnivore thing was a pretty big thing too, but I can't. So there's the information. There's lots of information. You have to try to delve through what's credible. It's not easy for anybody. I mean, jumping straight to a carnivore diet would be probably a very difficult transition for somebody because what do you believe? I mean, there's so much misinformation,
Yeah.
including what is what you would call the general population's understanding of what to do. All
It
your
goes,
friends
yeah, it goes
for
contrary to everything
years.
you hear, everything in the media, everything your doctor says, everything your naturopath says. Even it flies
Yeah.
in the face of everything we've learned and the brainwashing that we've all been undergoing. That saturated fats are bad and meat causes cancer. I mean, that false science,
Yes. And
false,
fat.
yeah,
My favorite is that eating fat gives you diabetes.
right.
So, how does anybody noodle their way through all of that? I can really appreciate the difficulties. So, it's important for me not to. I try really hard not to tell people things that I'm not very confident
Yeah.
can be discovered as independently from anything I have to say. So,
Yeah.
I have recently changed my workouts about 8 months ago, consistently 5 months now, to a new technique, which seems like a complete scam. And okay, and it seems I don't know how to call it. It seems like a complete scam, but I think it's a real thing, and it's based on research that John Jaquish is his name has come across. And the reason why can I talk about this for a minute? Because
Sure.
it's related to diet big
Okay.
time. And you can cut it all out, of course. But
Sure. Let's hear it.
but you asked me.
Okay. I'm curious now. If it's a
Well,
scam, if it has the word scam feel to it, then I definitely want to know about it.
okay, right. So I came across, I think it was on Facebook or something, right? Just a thing about osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis is of interest to me, along with other diseases that I think might be diet related and environmental related. Not for the reasons people say, this kind of stuff. And it was these devices that this gentleman, actually, who was based out of Nevada City, randomly,
Hmm.
had created. His mother, and this is what struck home and why I kind of went up that little, path to see, well, what is this about? What's going on here? And he claimed to have a therapy for osteoporosis. Okay, a non not related on drugs, not related on anything, related physical therapy. And I'm like, okay, sure, why, how? And so anyway, his mother got osteoporosis. He wanted to try to do something for her. Seems like a really sharp guy. And so we started researching, and he got all the papers he could, and he tried to figure out which ones actually had real scientific studies related to them and with statist, st- statistically relevant results instead of just results that don't matter. I mean, it's got to be statistically relevant. And he was having a lot of trouble figuring anything out. And then he just tried a different approach. And he said, hey, who has strong bones, right? Who has ultra mineralized bones and who doesn't? And the two examples he's given in his lectures, and now he has a new book out. He just came out with a book with his research in it, not on osteoporosis. He has a big old huge book about that. But the book about the exercise routines,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, which I'll get to them as fast as I can here. Anyway, so he just said, gymnasts have awesome bones. Swimmers have terrible bones. Well, what's the difference? One experiences huge forces when they dismount and things, and the other one's floating.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that lines up with information we generally have about astronauts, and your bones dissolve when they're not feeling pressure. Anyway, so he created these machines. They're computerized with servo motors and stuff, and they look like an exercise machine, but they really aren't. I mean, it's exercise in a way, but it's intended to stress the skeletal structure. And there's like 4 exercises that stress the different parts of your skeletal structure, from your waist down, your spine, your arms, this kind of thing. And it puts 10 or more times the pressure on your body
Hmm.
on the skeletal structure specifically. So it's not meant to work out your muscles, it's meant to work out your skeleton and cause it to experience the kind of forces a gymnast would experience,
Hmm.
except under computer control. So it has all this data. You have your own custom program. It's just for you. It knows how much stress you can handle. It slowly increases the stress in time. He had this other problem. He said, well, that's how you can, maybe that's how you can get the bones to respond. Your bones, like every other tissue in the body, is regulated, and that regulation needs an environmental stimulus to make changes in it. So that's how I need to stimulate it. But and it's hilarious because he's like, well, what am I going to do? Throw my 70-year-old mom off the roof? That's not going to work. And so what he figured out was from a biomechanics standpoint, through the range of motion of your range of motion of every joint on your body, you have a strong range and a weak range. And usually the beginning of the exercise is the weak range, and having simply to do with the biomechanics. Like, for example, if you're going to, you know, do a bicep curl, right? Down out here is when you experience joint pain and joint damage. And up here is where you're strongest. And you're less likely to be damaged because just the simple biomechanics of your ligaments and your muscle, and on and on. Anyway, so then he had these machines. He have patients using the machines, experiencing, instead of their bone density going down, they were getting extra mineralized and getting better in time. But he had all this data, and he could see through that range of motion that you just start off gradual where joint pain would happen, like let's say on something to stress this part of your body. So here maybe it's only 10 pounds, and here it's 80 pounds. So you get an 8 times change, but here you can handle it. And here you're also there's a bunch of principles involved, but you can fire more muscle tissue and a whole bunch of stuff. And you have the data from these Osteostrong devices. And actually, I'm thinking about that. Seems really cool. I have to tell you, and I wish we had one in the area. Seems quite effective. Doesn't take medicine, anything. So he's also a big proponent of exactly everything we're talking about here: fasting, carnivore diet, at least keto diet, combining these things. He's pretty credible. I haven't seen him say anything too crazy yet.
Awesome.
So he came up with a device for working out that he could sell to the masses. Now, these machines are very, very expensive. You have to go to a center. You only need to stimulate the skeletal structure for about 15 minutes a week, and you can begin to reverse osteoporosis. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how frail you are. I mean, as long as you can stand and do the exercise, you're still ambulatory. You can, you need to be able to stimulate it, and you can go way, way, way down. But in time, you go there for a couple of years, suddenly you've got massive amounts of weight on your body, and you're doing great. Anyway, so he came up with this idea that the variable resistance concept that he could see in his machines could be applied to muscle tissue growth, protein synthesis. And so he invented this sort of gimmick. Looks like a gimmick, I gotta tell you. But basically, it's these latex rubber bands that engage forces on the range of 5 to 7 times increased pressure between the weak range and the strong range. So in the case of a bicep curl, for example, maybe right here it's 20 pounds, and right here it's 100 pounds at the very top. And it has a number of effects that are documented in this book, if you're interested. It's called Weightlifting as a Waste.
Is it something you hold on to?
Yeah, you have like a bar that holds, and a plate.
Okay.
Right? And these big latex rubber bands of different sizes. And the properties of these particular latex rubber bands is that they give you 5 to 7 times more pressure from the weak range to the strong range. It also makes it so it's very unlikely that you have joint damage, but then it gets you to very high pressures at the strongest range where you're engaging the most muscle firing. And the antithesis is weight training, which we've been doing forever. I mean, since high school, right? All these different techniques, watching the big strong guys. This is how you do it. Okay, I'm doing it, right? Totally opposite of all that stuff. Instead, what's key to stimulating protein synthesis, it actually is not about working out. It's about stimulating a regulated tissue with an environmental stimulus that makes it respond by growing. So you have to tell your muscles that there's not enough protein, they're not big enough or strong enough. And the only way to really effectively do that is not to just work out the weak range of motion, but to work out the entire range of motion. And so when you grab a kettlebell and you do a curl, you are limited for a bunch of different reasons, but of course you're limited by the weak range of motion because that's where you start, and it's your most likely where you might be damaged. And then at the top, you're not really getting any workout because you're so much stronger there that it's not doing anything. It doesn't wear that. It's not wearing. All the muscles aren't firing. Just only there's a very small number of muscles are firing in the short in the weak range, and those are still the only ones firing up here when 4 or 5 times as many muscles could be firing, so they don't get worn out. They only wear out the weak range. You're using weights that don't change pressure, so you're only working out your weakest range. And it works. People get bigger, they get stronger. Yeah, there is something to it. But if you work out your entire range of motion, where you by varying the pressure, then you basically you cause a stimulus with that. That takes about, you do a series of 8 exercises broken into 4 groups. They're main muscle groups, and then a few little ones.
Right.
And you just break it up day after day. You do one group and the next group, like a deadlift one day and a you know
Fascinating.
squat the next day, and like this. You go back and forth.
Okay.
The workout takes about 15 minutes,
Okay.
and that's it. Kind of like the Osteostrong thing. And I've entirely switched to that kind of workout. Every other kind, CrossFit, running, um, weights, all the stuff, all the different things that I've done, all different patterns, this, that, and the other thing for years. And as of about 2 months ago, I completely quit everything, including running, for now. Because again, what am I going to die if I just don't run for 3 months? No. Well, okay. So and instead, I'm saving 100% of my energy for this environmental stimulation to engage protein synthesis. And I have to tell you, it kills you.
Mm.
Okay, like it in 15 minutes, because you never worked out your muscles all the way.
Huh.
You never wore them out through the entire range of motion. Like that doesn't happen. I mean, eventually, maybe if you're in the gym for 2 hours, this thing in 15 minutes is like 2 hours at the gym, doing everything nonstop. It
Okay,
is super crazy.
so it's
And it works. I mean, so in a 5 month period, so let's go anecdotal again, because like the carnivore diet, there's a bunch of research, but it's hard to avoid your personal experience. No
right.
matter what all this research is saying, yeah, but me, like you were talking about being constipated. Nobody I know, regardless of what I saw Dr. Paul Mason's video, right? Sorry about that. Someone who's at my front door.
Uh-oh. I'll do a time
No
check.
worries.
All right.
Anyway, I saw his video and it was hilarious about fiber, right?
Yeah.
And it was really great, and super credible, and it's awesome. However, on a personal note, I have yet to meet a single person, including myself, that has any trouble with constipation on a carnivore diet. That's the anecdotal thing that I mean. So anecdotally, I've been doing this X3. As of tomorrow, it'll be 5 months regularly, and I have gained 15 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
That is not normal. That is not normal for me. I don't think that's normal for anybody. I now weigh almost 180 pounds, and I started out at 164.
Wow.
And I didn't get a big fat pot belly. I do have a little bit of belly that I would like to get rid of, but that's tissues.
Mm-hmm.
It's muscle tissue and related tissues. Ligaments, and when you're on the carnivore diet, one other thing, I don't know if you eventually I think if I don't know, I'm not a girl, not a lady, okay, and I haven't been able to talk to any women about this in particular, but one other thing that we didn't discuss was that it is obvious that your skeletal structure gets stronger on the carnivore diet. Now, it takes a long time, and I don't know if it has to come with workouts as well. But even before I switched to this new technique, there was a noticeable change in my skeletal structure from the carnivore diet that never happened on keto.
And do you have less joint pain now? Did you ever have joint pain?
Yes,
You
and
did.
I would occasionally, I would occasionally be injured from working out
Mhm.
when I took it too far, and I would have to, you know, me and everybody else. If you're actually trying to make your muscles bigger, you have to stress them out, and sometimes, you yank something, and then you can't do anything for 2 weeks. But in 5 months of this new technique, there has been no injury whatsoever.
Wow. Okay, so we all know what builds muscle. Or I'm sorry, well, muscle and bone. What builds new bone tissue is protein, animal protein, guys. That's what it's all about. So you can repair your bones, you can remineralize your bones, and you can rebuild new bone tissue. So that is definitely possible. And the carnivore diet, or at least eating animal proteins, is certainly a way to do that. So tell us, what is this thing called again? This machine, this device?
It's called the X3
X3. So you can order this
or X3 bar.
X3 bar. So you can order this and get it shipped to your house. I mean, you find it on, you just Google them or what?
I'll send you a link.
Okay. All right. Well, check it out if it sounds interesting. I'm curious myself.
Um, Everybody I know who I've convinced to try this thing
Uh-huh.
has had uh, phenomenal response.
Great. Well, I've
But
been
again,
really,
super new. I think the very first prototypes aren't even 3 years old,
wow. Okay.
employing this concept.
Interesting.
Also, as I've seen in interviews, Dr. John Jaquish with his Osteostrong, he has mentioned on a number of occasions that he does recommend the carnivore diet even for his elderly patients for osteoporosis, because with the stimulus, the machine stimulus they have, it works a lot better if you're on the carnivore diet. So
Yeah.
I would call that not facts or anything, or proven by any kind of science, but he it's enough for him to recommend the carnivore diet when you're trying to turn around your bone structure. So
Fascinating. Well, that's great. I mean, any kind of resistance that we can give our body is going to help strengthen our structure. So, yeah, astronauts lose a lot of bone density in space because of that. And that's obviously a well known fact. But yeah, I've been running hundreds of stairs here in Mexico. And I have to say, it might not be the best thing for my body, but I have yet to discover the ideal workout. I do a little resistance and a little cardio and whatnot. It's pretty simple, basic stuff. But um, so yeah, I'm always interested in what's working for other people and how to build more muscle. Because as we age, we really need to keep up our strength and our muscle mass. We lose muscle mass as we age. So um, yeah. Well, I really have been just so enjoying this conversation with you, Jason, and thank you so much for joining me today and being willing to share your journey. It's been wonderful to hear your story. And is there anything else that you might want to add before we kind of wrap it up? Because it's been an hour, and I want to.
wow, okay, already? It's been so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I do have something to say.
Okay.
Just eat meat and drive electric cars.
and fat. You got to have some fat in there too, right?
Eat fatty meats and drive fast electric cars.
Awesome. I love that. That sounds like fun. Um, that's a lot better than eating liver and kidney. You should be the consultant, not me.
Well, if you're ever back in Auburn, I will let you drive some of my electric cars. They are super
Awesome.
cool.
I would
Yeah.
love that. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And again, you can find me at ketogenicdietcoach.com. And that's yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mary. Good luck in Mexico.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. I really appreciate you listening. And please send me an email if you have any questions. My email address is contact@ketogenicdietcoach.com. I would love to hear from you, know how you're doing, and also answer any questions that you may have. Please also check the notes. I will leave links to this very valuable information that was discussed here underneath this video or podcast link. So check those out, and also join my tribe. Check out my homepage of my website where you can sign up for my email list and receive lots of really valuable information that will help you along your way to a healthy, low-carb lifestyle. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day.